So how will you expand your comfort zone today? What's going on, guys? Dr. Sean here, author of Discover Choice. I thought I would talk about expanding your comfort zones. Now, most of the times I think about these topics because they're things that I'm actively working on myself. And I'm so glad to have you along. It's like having friends that are trying to improve their lives and make a better life for themselves the same way that I am. That is how I look at this. I don't see myself as an expert on all of these things or any of these things. I do have an interesting perspective because I get a chance to talk to a lot of people. I'll talk to 20 people today and listen to their perspectives as they share with me. And then I grow from that information. I see what sorts of conditions people are in, how they frame their ideas, and what they go on to do after that. And that teaches me, and then I can come back and share that perspective with you. So that is how I look at all this. And what I've noticed is that if we are going to improve, if we're going to make enhancements in our lives, it means that we will need to expand our comfort zones. If we're going to do something today and tomorrow that we didn't do yesterday, last month, and last year, it's going to be uncomfortable, perhaps at first, but then it'll become more comfortable, more habitual. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about expanding your comfort zones. I have a couple of recommendations, things that I actually use right now. As a matter of fact, on a couple of videos ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I had a discussion on starting ridiculously small. That works wonders. So that's the first thing I want to recommend, is starting ridiculously small. Now, let me break that down a little bit. First of all, starting is a huge deal, just to get something started. If you do that, you're out the gates. You can have an entirely different discussion than if you hadn't started something. Okay, so starting something is a big deal. Making a move. Okay, a lot of times we talk about things, we think about things, we share discussions, even argue about things, but we're not actually doing them. And so starting is a big deal. Okay, so I want to really emphasize that. Many times we start things that don't go as well as what we wanted. And because of that, we beat ourselves up, okay, when perhaps we could be celebrating ourselves for getting started. So starting is a huge deal. And if you've started something, I want to congratulate you for that. We should celebrate the fact that you've started something. That's a big deal. So starting, that's the first step, actually. And the second I would suggest is to start ridiculously small. I mean, ridiculously small. You know, something that you might look at and say, well, that doesn't mean, that's pretty insignificant. Won't really get me where I want to go. Start ridiculously small. I started an exercise program about 2 weeks ago, and that's what I was referring to earlier. And I started doing sit-ups. But I told myself I was going to celebrate doing one sit-up per day. And that's what gets me on the floor. I am going to celebrate the journey in this regard. Ridiculously small. One sit-up per day. Now, at the time, I mentioned that it was going to be 100% more sit-ups than I had done last year. And so I have accomplished that. Every night before bed, I get on the floor to do my one sit-up. And then, I had said that I was going to just get up. I want to be completely honest here. I end up doing 25, but I celebrate myself for getting on the floor and doing one sit-up per day. Ridiculously small, seemingly meaningless, but it gets me on the floor. And so that's my example of starting ridiculously small. Okay, so that's two things I've recommended there: to start and celebrate the fact that you've started, and start ridiculously small, like ridiculously. The third thing I want to recommend is to call it a program. Call it a program. It's my sit-up program. I think earlier I called it a part of my exercise program, or an exercise program in and of itself. When I call it a program, that I hear that and I feel that, and it means that, I got something going on here and I can celebrate that. And so I look at myself differently. I look at what I'm doing differently. I expect impact from it. I'm not worried about looking at the results today because I know I have a program that'll get me going in the direction that I want to go, and things will generally work out in a meaningful and powerful way. So now all of these things have everything to do with expanding my comfort zone, but doing it in a very measured and I might say comfortable way, emotionally comfortable a manner. And that's the big deal, right? When we can do things emotionally, well, then they will happen physically. See what you can do to expand your comfort zone today to keep winning. Thank you so much for joining me here in this 10X community. I love these conversations and I'm so happy that you're here. And if you think that somebody else could benefit from this message, please share it and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't, so that we can have this conversation tomorrow. Take care, guys. Keep winning.